All right. And we are back Monday night as usual. Pull up a chair. This one's going to be a good one. We got a lot of people already in the chat tonight. Appreciate you guys coming to hang out with me on a Monday. We're going to run it down like we usually do with the AMA. And we will get it kicked off with all the stuff that you guys are looking for on the macro side of things. A lot of people asking me about Venezuela, and rightly so. Just a few days after the new year here, we've had Maduro taken by the U.S. government. If you call Trump out and you call him a coward, he's going to call your bluff. You're gonna find out. He did obviously pick him up and bring him back here. And according to Trump, we are in control of Venezuela. And Venezuela is a huge strategic location for a lot of reasons. There was a video that I was watching that was put on. It was a professor speaking out of school. It may have even been out of, I'm not even sure, but it makes a lot of sense. He asked the class, what would be the largest threat to the United States? And in the movie or the video, people in the audience in the classroom, China, Russia, North Korea. Yeah, I mean, those are all pretty normal standard answers for, people that would be against the U.S. And another global superpower. In reality, though, Venezuela was what he said was the most strategic potential choke point or problem for the U.S. because it's so close. It's within striking distance, and the resources that are there in the ground are huge. More oil than Iran. They have tons of silver, tons of other minerals that are absolutely required for a global superpower to really kind of dominate. We know that there's large reserves of oil in China and Russia. We have some of those here in the U.S. But to be an independent superpower and be sovereign and not have to be reliant on other nations, you do want your own reserves of things. So for us to be in control of that, at the estimated price per barrel today, it's around $17.3 trillion that the U.S. now commands in oil. Does that change? Yeah, look, like a lot of people are like, okay, well, there's way too much oil for oil to spike now. I would argue against that. It requires a ton of resources, time, energy, capital, machines, compliance to get all of that oil out of the ground there in Venezuela. And until that infrastructure and those capital investments and those things are able to be moved into that jurisdiction, it's going to be difficult to obtain that and get it onto the market. Many of the wells were even capped here recently because the U.S. was seizing the tankers off of the coast there. So, we're still waiting for any retaliation if that's going to happen from Iran or the other BRICS nations. Again, that being a strategic point for the U.S. to remain in control of, keeps them out of there, right? So if they were looking to move into that jurisdiction, or Maduro was their guy there that was actually going to be in alliance with Iran and the other global superpowers, this is a big change in that regime. You saw their stock market up 17% today there in Venezuela. Big move. Big move in crypto today. Not so much on Bitcoin, but big on XRP. If you did buy XRP leading up to the new year, it's not $1,000 a piece, but you're up 30%. Not doing too bad. So this could be one of those rallies that is short-lived. This has been a pretty big move to the upside in a very short period of time, which is, what XRP is known for. When it gets around 250, 260, I do think that there's going to be some resistance there. There tends to be, a relief rally in the beginning of a bear market. This could be that. Until we do see the spike in oil, it's going to continue to operate as it has in the past. So just be aware of that. I've talked about this before. You never go broke taking profits. just be aware, of the tax implications. This is a brand new year. So you are 5 days in here. You have a long time to be able to offset those tax implications if you did sell something now. Last time XRP was at its all-time high was somewhere between January 4th and January 6th in 2018, right after the new year. And at that point, people taking profits at that time had the whole year to then offset those taxes. And we help people with that at Digital Ascension Group. If you need help mitigating taxes, structuring your estate the right way, with wealth management, insurance, all the things that you're going to need on the other side of price appreciation to much, much higher levels that I think are coming, again, based on global macroeconomic events playing out, we're happy to work with you. And we do have clients now that have already made significant amounts of wealth in crypto that we work with today, about $1 billion in AUM over there at Digital Wealth Partners. So that's where things are right now. And we're going to be watching them closely here. I've talked about oil priced in yen. That is going to be the thing that I continue to watch as things progress. WTI crude is important, but at the end of the day, what's going to cause the Bank of Japan to pivot and significantly raise interest rates? It's going to be a big move in oil priced in yen. That would cause inflation in their economy. So even if the US does have, huge stores of oil and oil is actually becoming cheaper denominated in US dollars, if there is a blockade or supply shock or situation where logistics are paused for oil transport through the Strait of Hormuz, like I've been talking about for a long time, that will absolutely cause the Bank of Japan to have to react and raise interest rates aggressively to offset that inflation in their economy. So that's what I'm going to continue to watch for. That's the drum I'm going to continue to beat here in 2026. And I'm very excited about this year. We've got the Clarity Act on the horizon here. I've told you guys this before. I believe that XRP will appreciate before the Clarity Act is passed. And then it could be just right before. It doesn't have to be like a long time before. If it is a while before, I do think that it has a little bit more of a moat and could be implemented and used in multiple applications before there are other blockchains that may be considered for those for that settlement mechanism or that rail or the settlement of that market. Even if the Clarity Act does get passed, the compliance that's built into the XRPL, I believe, still gives it a significant advantage. We are still waiting on a few amendments. So this isn't something that I normally talk about on the lives. It's mostly what I talk about in the Mastermind. It's not most of what I talk about in the Mastermind, but I talk about this more in the Mastermind, is the amendments that are on the XRPL that are being implemented. So we're waiting on permission domains. We're waiting on the permission DEX. We're waiting on batch. These are all things that large financial institutions actually need to be able to adopt the mainnet and use it at scale globally. Now, that's not to say they can't use it today using Corda or working with Ripple on one of their private permissioned side chains that they build out for the banks. Okay, so either one of those ecosystems allows them smart contract capability and the functionality that they need to be able to maintain, a record of account inside their own institution, but be interoperable with other counterparties utilizing XRP to settle over the mainnet just for the settlement component and not for more complex smart contracts that we know will have to exist later for the issuance of, stable coins and all the other things directly on chain. Now, the way that we get there, we've already seen this with SOAR band smart contracts on XLM or Hyperledger. We know that there is a viable way that you can implement lightweight smart contracts and still have high level of instant settlement or almost instant settlement and high throughput for TPS. I think that hooks being on the side chain over the long time will likely get migrated to the mainnet. And if that ends up being the case, then a lot of the same functionality that we see with SOAR band smart contracts, a lot of the layer twos for payments and processing have been built out on Hyperledger. A lot of people like Zbeck, a lot of people like Stronghold, a lot of people like Velo. There's a lot of other applications that are specific use cases or niches that are built out on top of Hyperledger that are peer-to-peer, merchant service type things. The XRPL is more for back-end settlement of large financial payments, including markets. And that's where I think the majority of volume is going to continue to grow, but there does need to be eventually some smart contract capability either as a layer 2 or natively on the network for derivatives, which is what I think, again, a lot of people have quoted me. I've talked about in the past, a 5-digit XRP. Derivatives have to be on chain, and they need to be settled through XRP for that type of price to be reached. We're a ways out from that. We are going to have the stock market tokenized this year. We're going to have back-end settlement of the stock market through Project Ion and the DTCC. You've got Canton network coming out strong for the tokenization of the stock market. Settlement and tokenization of the stocks themselves are two separate things, and I want to make sure people understand the delineation there. When I went to Swell this year, we got to watch Monica Long interview the president of NASDAQ, and when she did, she talked about exactly this: back-end settlement, reconciliation of the trades on the stock market. And that is the first application for distributed ledger technology that they are going to use. Again, Project Ion, developed in cooperation between DTCC and R3 is finalized. Been running in tandem since August of 2022. So you got a long time that's actually been working. And I do believe that that is absolutely what they're going to use to settle the back end of the stock market. You just need enough liquidity in XRP to be able to start settling those transactions. This all goes back again to the domino theory. If you guys have been living under a rock, just at a high level before we get into the questions, because I have a really good super chat here. Chain of events: oil spikes, Japan raises interest rates, they rotate out of US treasuries and buy their own bonds, US bonds flood the market. We have the stablecoin bill passed here in the US, so we have banks and institutions that will soak up those treasuries as they flow onto the market, because the demand here for issuing stablecoins will be high. It's around $2.3 trillion total globally. That is, foreign debt held outside the US treasuries that will flow back here. And guess what the amount of, estimated demand for stablecoins is? $2.3 trillion, exactly the same. So that'll be shored up. It'll shore up the bond market, but with the reverse carry trade unwinding at scale, you're going to see a haircut across markets. Anything risk on, risk off, it's not going to matter where your money is, there's going to be a repricing. So gold, again, I'm going to be unpopular. Same thing with silver. I think you're going to see a 50% drawdown both. I've called for, $2,000 or $2,100 gold. I think maybe that's a bit aggressive. Now that we're at 4,500, I was making those calls around, 4,000. So it could be, $2,250, $2,300 gold. But I do think it's going to be a big drop. And then also, as they shore things up with COMEX here this year, January 1st, 2027 is when UK adopts Basel III. And we are implementing Basel III in the US here in 2026. So that's going to require, full backing of all of the trades on the COMEX, audited. And really the only way you can do that is moving it on chain. Another big piece of news, that kind of goes along with all of this. Well, let me finish the domino theory and then we'll get to that. You know how I am. I like to tangent. So huge drawdown. Bitcoin has the same problem. Bitcoin and gold, both big drawdowns. Tether is then depegged. So exchanges need other liquidity. And they're going to have to start utilizing XRP, just like in Shane Ellis's theory, to be able to settle inside of the exchange. And that's why I say, looking at the wallets on the exchanges only tells you part of the story. People can look on chain and see how much XRP is held by exchanges. You can't see how much XRP is actually available for trade just by looking at the wallets. Each wallet's designated for specific stuff. You can discern which wallet is the trading wallet. If you go into each exchange on XRP scan and look through all the transactions, you can slowly figure it out. If it's a super high volume of, moving around of XRP there, it's probably the trading wallet. If it's something that's stagnant and hasn't had a ton of transactions over the past, 6 months, probably something that's part of their treasury or a stockpile for them that they're going to use in some other application, right? So anyway, I think that there's less than 100 million left on the OTC desk, and the dark pools, I think we're right down to the end of it here, and that's why you're starting to see price move a little bit more aggressively for XRP. I do think some of that volume made its way onto the exchanges today, and that's why XRP outperformed Bitcoin over the last 24 hours. Now, will that trend continue? It absolutely could. as things progress here, because again, the supply left on the OTC market and the dark pools is very, very low. I do anticipate that we are going to see a BlackRock ETF or exchange traded product here in 2026 for XRP. And I do think that that'll add significant amounts of demand, but I think that's going to happen right at the opportune time, again, when all of these other catalysts play out, to be able to drive XRP's price up, to then settle the back into the stock market and de-risk from all of the losses on Bitcoin and settle them real time. So again, if you haven't watched the Domino Theory, I've been talking about this for, oh man, 21 months. It'll be 2 years in March of this year ago that I put out the original Domino Theory and the thesis. So if you haven't, check it out on the channel. Without further ado, oh, one more thing and then we'll get to the super chat. The Prime Minister in Japan has also stated that they are ready to implement blockchain and crypto into their financial system. Very interesting and very timely of her to say that today, with everything that's playing out there for the reverse carry trade and Japan being such a critical component and player in the global ecosystem for the adoption of this asset class. SBI, you know, if you again have done any research, you know that they are a 10% owner in R3 and in Ripple. And Yoshitaka Tao, who's the principal there, is a huge advocate for XRP. He used to be, you know, the financial person for the Prime Minister 2 Prime Ministers ago. All things that make you go, So we'll jump to this one first, and then we'll get into all of the other fun super chats. Again, appreciate you taking time out to come hang out with me on a Monday night. So this one says, I wanted to change my name to Wayne just so I could hear you say Wayne. Appreciate you, brother. Could you please touch on your mindset before and after you initially made your money? Was there a paradigm shift? Sincerely, Mick Ripple in Discord. I had a lot of things play out during that period of time that helped me. So maybe y'all that don't know my full story, we got a lot of new people on here. Again, appreciate you taking time out. A little background for you. I spent a year in, well, almost a decade in industrial sales. And during that time, I spent most of my time driving. I would go meet with clients. And while I was in the vehicle, I would just listen to audiobooks. I would listen to content, YouTube, podcasts, whatever I could get my hands on around bodybuilding, which is what my obsession was at the time. In 2020, I competed at nationals in 2019. I was 230 pounds at about 5% body fat and didn't place as well as I wanted. My boy was young. He was about 3 at the time. And so, you know, after I started to gain weight again and put on size, because I was like, all right, well, I got to move to open because I didn't do well in the other class that I was in. And my health started to go a little bit sideways. And I thought, you know what, like, this isn't worth it. I need to take my time and focus and start putting it on something else. And that's when everything really kind of pivoted. And I started spending the, you know, 5 to 10 hours a day that I was consuming content instead of bodybuilding, nutrition, drugs, like everything that it takes to compete in that sport. And I pivoted to finance and business. And, you know, listening to Jim Rohn and a lot of, you know, Earl Nightingale, a lot of the other motivational speakers that are out there, Les Brown, you get a lot of some of the paradigm shift that it's going to take for you to manage wealth over the long term. Like, you do have to believe that it's going to happen and have the skills, traits, and beliefs to be able to generate the money before it shows up. Jim Rohn says, if somebody hands you $1 million, it's best that you become a millionaire, right? What's worked for me is I picture the highest version of myself, the best version of myself. And I ask myself, what would that person do on a daily basis? What would their habits look like? And if you're able to step into that version of yourself and do those things on a regular basis, we're at the new year here, you know, everybody's new year, new me. They've got their New Year's resolutions. This is a great way to do it. If you can imagine the best version of yourself and then what that person would do on a daily basis and their habits, that's the cheat code. You will figure it out. And when it comes to the financial education, I would just start reading books. I would start listening to podcasts. There's a lot of stuff that I listen to that is not in vogue. It's boring. It's mundane. You know, a lot of the things with family office, there's not a huge amount of family office content out there on YouTube. Angelo Robles is great. You've also got, you know, Richard C. Wilson, who wrote the Family Office book. There's not that many people that talk about family office and how to manage wealth across generations and impart, you know, skills, traits, and beliefs, core principles, and values to the next generation to be good stewards of that wealth over the long term, because that's really what you become. And that's probably the biggest mindset shift is before you're wealthy, it's your money, right? Like you're risking it. You're doing this on your own accord. Obviously, it's for your family and the betterment of your life. But on the other side of wealth, when it comes to you, wealth preservation is paramount. It should be your number one concern. And when I say wealth preservation, that means keeping up with inflation, not necessarily making a real return. All of the wealthiest families that I know want to maintain their purchasing power of their estate. And then secondary to that, they want to compound it and grow it. So that's, again, why our number one rule at Digital Wealth Partners is don't lose XRP. And rule number two is refer to rule number one, because that is going to be what the majority of people use to generate significant amounts of wealth for themselves and their family. And if you can just hold on to that, it's going to do much better than inflation over the long term. Now, we need ways to generate cash flow off of that and be able to leverage it and draw loans against it so it's tax-free. We've created all those things, right? The other thing that really helped me was finding good mentors and people that understood things way beyond what I did at the time. Went to school for finance. I would say probably 85 to 90% of what I use on a daily basis, I was never taught in school. There was a gentleman, you know, out on Twitter, and thank you for this. He said that he feels like, you know, from the information we provided in the Mastermind, he's got a whole MBA in how to manage investments, financial education, business resources, estate planning, tax mitigation. You know, there's tons of information that we provide there that if you just listen to it, and again, I'm not the end all be all. I know enough to be dangerous. You're going to be able to, you know, at least know the right questions to ask when you approach these professionals. And that's what I was going to say is find good professionals, find good mentors that you know have a good track record, and work with them. And then you're going to be able to discern, you know, over the long term, what their paradigm is and their frameworks for thinking, the tools and tricks that you have at your disposal, and where those fit as those opportunities present themselves for you. So I would also, and this is hard for me still, I pay money to be in rooms that I don't belong in. If I am the smartest person in the room, I am in the wrong room. I want to be in rooms where people have significantly more knowledge than I do about certain topics. I feel pretty confident and capable in certain domains. There's probably 3 areas where I'm like, yeah, I'm probably in the top 1 to 5% of people on the planet that knows about that specific thing. But I want to be around other people that are at that level for other things. And then you have people in your Rolodex that you can call and you can say, hey, you know, I don't know a ton about this, but you're the guy. What do you think? And if you become that person for whatever it is in your industry, those people also start to find you, which is really cool. So again, I don't know if any of this is helpful for you or not. These are just things that have been impactful for me. Maybe 2 more things before we move on here, because I think this is a really good question, and I think it's going to be very prominent in people's minds. Growing up, my dad thought you needed to be a bad person or do bad things in order to make a lot of money. That can't be further from the truth. All of the wealthiest people that I know, now to say that they haven't been shrewd in business would be a lie. However, they've created a lot of value for a lot of people. And that's really the secret sauce. And that's what XRP does, right? Like, it's going to unlock value at scale globally. And the tokenization of these assets is going to create liquidity and the ability to mobilize capital in ways that have never existed before. it unlocks a completely separate economy, and also the throughput at scale across the economy for GDP becomes exponential the more liquid things get, because now the velocity of money picks up. You can use that money and deploy it 24/7, 365. You don't have to wait on a bank or a gatekeeper to tell you what you can and can't do with your cash at any given time. Like, the value that's going to be generated from this cannot be understated. Like, it is that significant. And for the people that created this, I want them to become trillionaires. People say, like Brad and Chris and David and all these people don't deserve that. I think they absolutely do. If you generate that much economic value for the world at scale, 8 billion people, you for sure deserve to be a trillionaire. Elon is well on his way to becoming a trillionaire as well. If you are helping that many people and changing that many people's lives, you should be very well compensated. And also, I want to give you the money, because you understand how to deploy it. You understand how to solve problems. You understand how to create solutions that create value for people. And so, a lot of people don't want to give their money up to the government. They would rather do philanthropic means with it in order to be able to mitigate their taxes. I think that that's a huge benefit, right? Because you're going to be philanthropic one way or the other. You're either going to hand a bunch of money over to the government and they're going to dole it out the way that they want to, or you're going to make donations to your private charity, or a DAF or a charitable remainder trust, or one of the other tools that's in the arsenal that you're going to have if you're working with the right people to maintain that money over the long term and do good in your community or for whatever cause you think has the greatest impact for your legacy, right? So anyway, I thought growing up that you had to be bad, or like, none of that's true. So that's been a huge paradigm shift for me. Probably, that happened for me in 21. I went on my first private jet ride, paid more money than I was comfortable with at the time to go do that. And the people that I was on the jet with, I thought were going to be demeaning or like to look down on me. I had the least net worth of anybody there. But they were all super nice and all just cool, genuine humans that are excited to help other people. And hopefully that's what people do with this money as they come into it. Be a good steward of the capital for you and your family. Make sure that you're preserving your wealth. And when you have excess, do cool things with it. Help other people, right? The more you give back, and this has been another hard one for me, because again, I grew up in scarcity where, there was never enough money. My parents got divorced over money. The more you give, the more you get. If you're tithing, if you're giving to your church, if you're giving to your community, if you're giving back in whatever way that you can, you are circulating money. So you're not spending it, you're circulating it. And when you circulate money, it comes back to you in greater and greater quantities over the long term. So I would just encourage people, again, not to be overly aggressive, but 10 to 30% of whatever you have or whatever you make on an annual basis, if you are giving that away and helping other people, it's going to come back to you tenfold. So anyway, I appreciate the super chat, Ryan. And again, hopefully that was valuable for you guys. We'll jump into the other ones here. Again, blessed and grateful to have you guys here on the chat with me. We're going to run it down for you guys. Let's see. I'm going to go to the bottom and work my way back up, because we do have some super chats here. This one's $2. I guess, like this, and not to say any super chat is small. I appreciate all super chats. But apparently they disappear, and if I don't get to them fast enough, they will go. Dorian Yates or Ronnie? Ooh, Ronnie. Like, Ronnie at his peak, you can't beat Ronnie. He would have beaten Dorian. Even though he was super grainy and hard. Yeah, I think Ronnie at his peak versus Dorian at his peak, Ronnie takes it. You got K-Bear. They say, you and your team are truly a life raft for a lot of us. And remember, never argue with an idiot, an uninformed person, or a fool, because anyone walking by and that hears that argument cannot discern with whom is the idiot and the uninformed or the fool. Yeah, I think it's best to take the high road a lot of times, especially when, if there was a problem, there'd probably be a reason to address it or go back and forth, but there's not. So we've got another one here. We said, can you talk about XRP Shri on the exchanges? Not sure what SHRI is. If you don't super chat again, but if I catch you again, I will. Let me see. Let me just go to Google. Maybe there's. I'm ignorant sometimes. I got XRP Shrimp. I don't have XRP Shri. Not sure. I would, if I had more context, I'd be able to answer it. I apologize. All right, we got another one here. We got Jaybird 101. They say Jake the Goat. Appreciate it, man. JY here, Carbon One member. Love the community. Can you touch on Canton and how a lot of individuals are saying CC will compete with XRP? And what is your take on Bitcoin XRP being the bridge to transact on Bitcoin? I agree wholeheartedly on the second fact. I think that is actually, I've gone back and forth on Bitcoin going to zero a lot. I don't think it does. I think it ends up on the XRP ledger, and that's how Bitcoin survives. And I do think it'll be around, and I think there is still a significant possibility that it goes to $1 million. I do think that we're in for a big pullback before that were to take place. I think that it's a bit overinflated with the real value that it currently has. But over the long term, I do think that it ends up wrapped on the XRPL or represented on the XRPL or Flare. And that is how people actually transact with Bitcoin in a peer-to-peer manner, the way that it was initially intended by Satoshi, right? When they didn't upgrade or increase the block size in 2014 and it forked into Bitcoin Cash, a lot of Satoshi's original vision was kind of foregone. And now it's been relegated to, digital gold because of the supply. And you also have a quantum computer that can hack, SHA-256 encryption that Bitcoin is, that I think will happen in the near future. Now, if they upgrade the network and they do the right things, that may not happen. I do think that the energy component of Bitcoin is huge, huge. Obviously, Trump's children are significantly involved with that. And again, all of these things culminate for me to believe that it probably doesn't go to zero over the long term, but I do think that all of that value does end up on the XRPL. All right. So that's that one. And then we'll go to Canton Network. So Canton was invested in by the DTCC. They are tokenizing real world assets, and the stock market is likely the main application for Canton. So tokenization of stocks and settlement of the back end of the trades are two different things, like I was talking about earlier. Tokenization of the stock market provides, you're going to need something with smart contract capability. You're going to need something that is an issued asset. Now, I will say this. There is a multi-purpose token that's been issued on the XRPL. And that multi-purpose token is very good for equities. You can add different types of rules, voting mechanisms, and all different types of things that should be associated with your stock, whether that's common or preferred, through that multi-purpose token on the XRPL. So will, Canton take everything? I don't know. There's over 16 or 17 exchanges that include NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange and the Texas Stock Exchange. There's many more. Also, the two most prominent ones that you guys know are the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ. They get the majority of the listings for the companies. They have a ton of ETFs and volume. They are the most frequently traded and advocated for. Now, I think the Texas Stock Exchange over the next decade will probably become a prominent player and maybe overtake those other two exchanges. We'll have to see if that takes place or not. Again, I'm biased, live in Texas, take it with a grain of salt. So when it comes down to it, though, the tokenization of stocks, you're going to be able to trade fractional shares. It's going to be an accounting mechanism that's across all of the clearinghouses and the brokers that allow them to make sure that nobody is overselling the stock. It's always a one-to-one representation, even if that stock's been fractionalized. So if you wanted to buy, one share of Berkshire Hathaway today, you need $500,000. Most people can't afford that. And that's why most companies do stock splits. So, when Amazon or Google or Nvidia or any of these companies run up to $4,000, $5,000 per share, the average person can no longer buy a share. And so they'll normally do a stock split of 10 to 1, 20 to 1, 25 to 1, whatever it is, in order to get the share price back down to around $100 to $200 a share. And that's where the average person can buy one share or two shares and they're okay, right? With the fractionalization of stocks, they won't have to do that. You'll be able to buy 1,000th of a share, a 10,000th of a share. All these things will be possible on chain, and there will never be any situation like we had with GameStop or AMC where they oversold the shares by 139%. They had to halt trading and all this stuff. They won't be able to move to 24/5 until they have tokenized the stock market, right? You need that liquidity, you need real-time trading, you need all those things to be available for that situation to play out. You probably need AMMs or automated market makers on the back end of this stuff. The XRPL, again, has what I think is the best AMM across any digital asset or chain. So, Canton is doing great. It's big in the news right now. Obviously, there's some hype behind it. The token's done well. I will not be buying any of it until I see XRP appreciate to the levels that I've been talking about for a long time. Again, predicated on all the macro events that we've also discussed playing out. And then again, appreciate you being part of the mastermind. If you guys want to join the mastermind and be a part of the community that has over 18,000 people in it, we would love to have you there. All you got to do is go to beyondbroke.com and use the code beyondbroke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar. Get you the first month for a small discount to be able to try it out and see if it is a good fit for you. And we are likely going to lock that down here in the near term. We'll move on to evolution here in a second. We're about at a point where the chat's doing 100 messages a minute. It's difficult to even keep up with there in Discord. The higher levels are easier to discern what's going on. But I do think that we're probably going to cap the mastermind. We'll just call it after January here. So if you guys do want to participate there, I would encourage you to join, check it out, see if it's for you. And then, at that point, it'll be invite only after this month. Evolution says, if you get an LLC crypto holding company, can you get a business credit? Can you get business credit with this LLC? Yeah, you absolutely can. So you're going to want to run money through the bank accounts. We have 3 people in the mastermind that specialize in business credit and personal credit and how to repair that. One of the things that I've seen people do for business credit, you need to get a DUNS number. So you're going to have to register that with your EIN so that you actually have a credit score for your business. And then you can get some just standard accounts. So Quill is a good one that'll give you a line of credit for your business for the like toiletry products. So if you can order those for your home anyway, just start ordering them through Quill and then use the line of credit there and pay it down. Granger is another one that will extend you a line of credit, pretty much brand new business. Gas cards are also good. So if you want to get like, I know here in Texas, we have QT. There's, Loves and other stations that'll issue gas cards. Those are 3 really easy ways to get your foot in the door and start building business credit. And after you have, 6 to 8 months of payments on those, you can go, Uline's another really good one. This person over here on TikTok knows what's up. So all those are great. And then after 6 or 8 months, you can go get trade lines put on your account. So what that is basically somebody else has a large line of credit in their business or in their personal name, and they will make you a signer or your business a signer on that trade line. And then when you go to apply for loans with banks, they're going to see that large trade line on your business. And ideally, you've actually made some revenue. You've got money in your accounts. They can see invoices or something on a regular cadence. So with this, you're likely going to be wanting to put your digital assets to work in some capacity, whether that's through staking or the yield products that we're going to be coming out with, or the returns in the hedge fund that we've been able to return for people. The final number this year on the funds for the income fund was about 4.5%. Actually, it's 4.25% on the year. So that's since April. So we do have another quarter here, again, targeting somewhere between 6 and 15%. With the market action that we have, we're already up this month. So super excited about that. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to Digital Wealth Partners and talk to them. Those are quarterly payouts, but they do have some spots left open on that opportunity if you want to learn more. And then there's also the growth fund. The growth fund's about flat, just full transparency. Over 9 months, because of the market action that we've had, we're about break even on the original growth fund that we launched in April that I can talk about publicly. If you want to learn more about the other opportunities that are there at Digital Wealth Partners, again, go talk to the advisors and they will give you the specifics on the other things that are there that I can't talk about here publicly. If you want to learn more about Reg D and what's going on and why I can say things here, and other people think there's discrepancies with things, you can go watch a video we just put out from our CEO and the hedge fund manager there at Digital Wealth Partners. It's on all of the social media channels if you want to understand better, like why the compliance is the way that it is and why we do things the way that we do so that we can legally offer this stuff here in the US. If you look at Doppler, if you look at Midas, if you look at Flare, we've talked to all of them. They have geofenced the US. If you are a US citizen, you are not supposed to be participating in those products. They know that they are illegal securities offerings here in the US. And they're doing everything that they can to mitigate US participants in those things. So if you are participating using a VPN, just know that. Don't get them in trouble, please. Like I like all those guys. I want them to continue to be able to grow and scale things. And I don't want the SEC to come after them because, enough people were silly. And even though they tried to stop them from participating, they weren't able to. And I do think that all of them will become compliant. That's probably a prediction I'll make here in 2026. I believe that a lot of the DeFi protocols on the XRPL will become compliant here in the US. We're still waiting on 2 pieces of regulation for that. We're waiting on the Clarity Act, which will tell you if a digital asset is a security, a commodity, a currency, whatever it is. And then secondary to that, I think that we're going to have another bill that's going to be specifically for DeFi and institutional applications. So what is, what are the ways that we have to have oversight in these, open, decentralized protocols? If it's got more than 50 million in it, does it need to be a broker dealer? There's a lot of things that the SEC are still working through right now on how to regulate this stuff, because this is all new and they're going to have to change the securities laws that have existed for the past 70 or 80 years. And I think that they're going to do a really good job of it. I'm excited about Paul and all of the other people that are there. We just had one other lady, step down from the SEC the other day. And I think she was the last one that was an advocate for, regulation by enforcement on crypto while Gensler was there. So anyway, you can absolutely get credit. You are going to want to have, income through the LLC. But again, if you follow that pattern that I just talked about, again, that's not from me. That's from people much smarter than me that I've talked to about establishing business credit, and it's worked well for us. We got Manda Panda. How are you? She says, love the mastermind. I got my parents to join now too. Awesome. Tell them hi. Hi, Mom and Dad. Good to see you. She said, my dad's been battling stage 4 and winning for 6 years. Oh, God bless you. Congratulations. Keep kicking ass. I'm sure you have a lot of reasons to live. And Manda sounds like she's really happy that you're still around and taking care of things. So God bless you guys. Thank you again for being part of the mastermind. And again, here's to a lot more years and continuing to kick cancer's ass. All right. We got Rob. He says, Jake Tradamus, new to Carbon One member here, and I'm loving it. If we don't get a macro event and it's left up to supply shock only and the project Agora, what does the timeline look like? Well, I'll tell you this. I was disappointed just like everybody else at the end of last year. You did have the raid that was supposed to happen in Venezuela was actually delayed by about 2 weeks. They've been planning that for a while. They had, a full plan of action 4 days before that took place on the 30th to go in and do that. There's a lot of things in the background that, didn't play out in that period of time. But with that being said, my team has told me that I need to stay away from timelines or specific prices, at least for the short term here, and continue to focus on the macro events, because that is actually what's going to lead to the price appreciation. And that's fair, right? I could understand why people would be disappointed in things. But again, even if you were disappointed and you bought, like, nobody lost money. The only person that lost money at the bet at the end of the year was me. I've had to pay scams $9,000, which is worth $12,000 today. So again, the only person that lost money on that whole deal was me. I put my money where my mouth was. I made the bet. I paid the bet. And, if I believe in something, I'm going to stand on it. I'm not going to bow out or, shrink back. If I feel confident in something, I'm going to stand for it. So if you like me, awesome. If you don't like me, I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. That's okay. But, to that point, I'm probably going to, at least for the next 6 months here, my deal with my legal team is I'm not going to be giving timelines on anything. I'm not going to be giving any specific price points or projections. It's just going to be the macro events that are going to cause the exponential move in XRP. Okay. And again, I still believe in 3, 4, 5 digits, just like I've talked about, but they don't want me to say those things. So I will refrain from it because I was asked to do that by our legal counsel, which are also pursuing other things right now. All right. We got Lucky 7. He says, hey, thank you for the information you provide. When profiting with Bank of America, will there be a benefit of it since they have to work with Ripple, or is best through exchanges, use Tangent, or is MoonPay better? Well, I mean, MoonPay just got the previous head of the CFTC, Caroline, working there, Caroline. So, I like MoonPay. I've used MoonPay. I've used Tangent, I've used Zaman, I've used Decent, or the cold wallets that I look at pretty regular. And again, there's a lot of good cold wallets out there. We're an affiliate for Decent. If you want to use them, awesome. I think we have a link below. They're the only affiliate or sponsor that we have on the channel because I like their product and there's never been any issues. But there's other good ones. There's EliPal, there's Arculus, there's Trezor. There's a ton out there. But when it comes to exchanges, I do not believe that banks are going to be buying and selling crypto in the near term. Credit unions have adopted some of this. So Bank Social is in the same building as us here in Dallas. And they've been working with Credit Union of Texas and many other large credit unions to implement the ability to buy and sell crypto inside the apps for those. I do think that large banks will acquire crypto exchanges when Tether implodes. I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunity in the market for that. And so when that takes place, I do think on the other side of that, they will still have to streamline that and implement it with their operations, but it's going to allow them to then offer those things to their clients. Again, none of this is built out where you own the crypto directly. And that's been the whole reason that we did things the way that we did. You have an FBO account at Anchorage in your name, segregated, bankruptcy remote, and insured up to $100 million. So with all that being said, other banks haven't set it up that way. They have omnibus accounts and structures where, you are part of a pool. They take that and they earn money with it and do other things, and it's rehypothecated. And with that, it's not the same benefit. So that's why we've structured things the way that we have. And Anchorage has their own internal security mechanisms that work better than anybody else. And that is why BlackRock has moved their assets there. We're actually going to come out with a full breakdown on how that security works inside Anchorage, because a lot of people have been asking for that. Our clients, are educated on it because they have an advisor they can talk to, but the general public, I think, may have some misconceptions about that. So we are going to offer that just as a public resource so people understand it better. But when it comes to your ability to work with Ripple directly, I don't think retail's ever going to be able to work with Ripple directly. They're only going to work with institutions and enterprises. Now, many of you probably will become institutions or enterprises on the other side of price appreciation, right? If you've got 20, 50, $100 million, you are your own institution. And you can absolutely go get access to institutional custody at Anchorage without Digital Wealth Partners. The benefit that you're going to get through Digital Wealth Partners are a lot of things. One, you're going to get a reduction in your cost for the custody there because we have an aggregate total and we're able to pass the savings on to all of our clients. Separate of that, you're going to get the best deals, right? And you're not going to have access to all the financial products because everything that we've done is proprietary. Our deal with algos that's on your IRA, Arch Public on your IRA, the proprietary trading algorithm that we have to be able to generate additional returns and compound your XRP inside your IRA, proprietary. Our hedge fund and the strategies there, proprietary. The relationships that we have with other counterparties that we're going to be launching other products with, proprietary. So, you can hold it there, great, but you're not going to have access to all the other cool stuff that we've been working on and have already brought to market over the past 12 months. But again, as things progress here, there will be competitors, there will be other people that come out with, stuff that is similar to what we do. And I'm happy for that. I want people to have those opportunities. I want people to be able to generate returns on their XRP and on their XLM and on their HBAR. And that way, like, everybody gets to win, right? I don't look at it as we're the end all be all. I think we're just one of the major options that are out there, and we're going to continue to innovate and bring value and products to market before other people. So anyway, with all that said, I do think if you want to sell some, you're going to need to go to a brokerage or to an exchange. And if you are at Anchorage, we have the cheapest trading fees at Digital Wealth Partners of any of those out there. We've got Patrick, my man. He says CA gas at the pump, $10 to $12 by summer. Add to the bingo. Yeah, man. Again, the bingo card did not get stamped off there in 2025. We still need the spike in oil, and we still need the BlackRock ETF for XRP to see the numbers that we really know that it's possible of seeing. So, yeah, if California gas is that high, you can bet your biscuits the reverse carry trade is going to unwind. We got KT Baby and Rob. How are you? They say, Jake. General Chat says hi. What's up? We missed you today. What an exciting day. Looking forward to a beautiful year. Appreciate your perseverance. God bless. God bless you guys. Thank you for the kind words and the support. And again, super excited to have so many good people there in the mastermind with us. We got James. He says, gonna put you on the spots. Can you list the NDA you have and with who without sharing details? Sorry, worth a shot. Ripple R3. They probably don't want BNY Mellon. And there's a couple more. But those three, yeah. And again, I don't say anything that I'm not supposed to for those. I don't know if y'all saw the deal with Black Swan Capitalists. Okay. That's how I have to be. So, he stated that Jim, I was talking to somebody that was at a dinner with us, and he knew somebody in his life that dealt with psychology and other things. If you have NDAs, you need to honor those, right? Like you can be pursued. It's not a good thing. So again, a lot of the things, and the reason I ask questions like I do is to get visceral responses from people, because that's what they can give me. And that's on the other side of the table on some things. So anyway, I try to do that for you guys. And if you can pick up on, what I'm trying to lay down, awesome. I can't lay things out explicitly for you a lot of the time. So, Crabs Man says, Jake, already have an LLC and revocable trust set up. Can you guys do my operation agreement and other docs needed to make sure I'm structured properly? Beyond broke member as well, interested in DWP. Absolutely, we can work with you. Our estate planning arm over there at Digital Ascension Group can work through things with you and provide you our template and operating agreement. There are additional costs associated with that. But if you already have the LLC and the revocable trust set up, the operating agreement, I think we charge $500 for. So, you know, substantially cheaper than what it would be if you were to go to an attorney. Again, as a template. So you can, you know, it's malleable. You can add things to it, subtract things from it. It's yours to do what you want if you pay the $500 for it. And then anything in addition to that, we could audit also what you've looked through or already put in place and make sure that you're buttoned up, your corporate veil's maintained. There's nothing that's going to compromise your creditor protection or the probate protection that you're going to get from the things that you've already established. And Laughlin is our partner there that helps us do all that. They're the paralegal group that we work with. So if you want to just reach out to Mike or Living Legacy there in the Mastermind, I'm sure that he'd be able to direct you to the right people to help you out, my man. Appreciate you. All right, we got ZZ. They say, Jake, thanks for everything you are doing and creating. Many members of the Mastermind will pay it forward. God bless you and yours. The world needs more folks like you. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Really, at the end of the day, we just want to help people. We really do want to help 1 million people become financially free. And that's not going to happen. You know, it could happen over my lifetime, which would be great. I'm still young. I'm hopeful for that. But really, the impact that we're going to be able to leave is to what you mentioned there. People paying it forward, people helping other people, people having enough of their own blessings to be able to share them with others. And that's the coolest part about a lot of what's going to take place here is, especially in the Mastermind, all the philanthropic good and community good and impact that people are going to be able to leave, I think is going to be second to none for the XRP family and those in the Beyond Broke Mastermind especially. Oh, we are already an hour in here. We're going to continue to run down the super chats. And again, appreciate you guys coming to hang out with me. If you haven't yet, I always forget to say this. Please like, subscribe, share this. You know, it does help the algorithm across the platforms over here on TikTok, X, YouTube, and Facebook. It does make a big difference for us, and it is much appreciated. And also, I should probably give my disclaimer, because otherwise, again, my legal team will be upset with me. So none of this is financial advice. It's only for entertainment and educational purposes only. If you need financial advice, you should always work with a financial advisor. You can reach out to Digital Wealth Partners if you need somebody to help you with crypto in particular. And then separate of that, everything stated here are my opinions. They are not the opinions of the firm, Digital Ascension Group, or Digital Wealth Partners. Again, I speak about my portfolio, my investments, my thesis. Our advisors are going to give you much more fiduciary-like advice than what I do personally. My risk tolerance is significantly higher than most people. I think that I'm pretty risk adverse because, again, I think XRP is probably the safest bet in my mind. Again, just one person's opinion. And that's why I'm siloed there and not diversified across multiple cryptos or in multiple asset classes. On the other side, price appreciation, we will absolutely be diversifying. So, and we'll tell you guys all about that when the time comes. All right, now that we got that out of the way, a couple more super chats here. We got vibing, but can't find the exit. They say, hey, Jake, I'm a big fan, but do you feel like it was somewhat irresponsible to say 99.9 for December prediction? Any regret on your end? Good price action today. You know, irresponsible. Look, I just stated, like, these are my opinions. If you, and I always tell you guys, I'm just some crazy guy on the internet. Okay, so don't make decisions that would put you in a bad position. Now, if you have discretionary income and you do your own research and it aligns with some of the stuff that I talk about, have at it. I think, you know, and I stated this multiple times on the lives, I didn't want people to be over leveraged. And I think that's the reason people were upset. And I could see why they would be. That's fair. Based on the information I had, I felt very confident. And like I stated, what happened in Venezuela was supposed to happen up to 2 weeks ago. So, again, I don't have a timeline. I thought I did. And that's why I shared what I shared with you guys. And obviously that was off. So like in my business and with many other things, timelines get extended. I'm the only one that lost money. Nobody else paid scams, and everybody else got their XRP back. Like, I think that's the part that everybody kind of forgets on that whole bet. The whole point of the bet and the year-end deal with Scams, who's an account on Twitter for those that don't know that I had the bet with, was to get the people that he had taken XRP from back their XRP. So, it's not a ton of XRP, but about 2,500 XRP that were passed back to people. 2,400 XRP. He's gonna, well, I think I paid him 4,688 XRP. So whatever half of that is the amount of XRP that he then sent back to other people that he had taken XRP from. I've been very blessed in my life. That's not the end of the world for me. It's not my entire XRP bag. And so for me to be able to give back to those people, because not everybody, again, has a decent income where they can accumulate a ton of this stuff. I want people that if they had some to hold on to it and make sure that, they're going to be able to benefit over the long term from this. So that was the whole premise behind everything there. And again, I could understand why people feel disappointed. I am, believe me, just as much as anybody else disappointed. However, all of the things that I've been talking about are completely still at play here. All of the dominoes are still standing. Every single one of these is ready to fall, all with the price appreciation of oil priced in yen. So, here's the other piece of this too. On the other side of price appreciation, one of the things, this first question that we had tonight about the paradigm around money before and after, being emotional about your money causes you to make missteps and have problems. So if you can't manage your emotions now, whether they're good or bad always tends to be, worse than good, right? Like today's fun. It doesn't feel as impactful as if it was 30% down in the market. People would be way more down in the dumps if it was 30% down. But you need to be able to maintain composure and resiliency back to baseline if you are in here for the long term and are going to go through the volatility in this market. So I think a lot of people, I know there's been multiple people that have reached out that actually have thanked me for stating what I did, because they got to a goal, they pushed themselves financially and got to a goal and accumulated more XRP than they thought they were going to, and now we're up 30%. So again, that's just today that we're up 30%. Tomorrow could go back down. There's going to be things that are volatile, but I think, at the end of the day, I don't know if it's a net positive or net negative. I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to do better. I'm going to listen to my legal team, and we will move forward, and we'll continue to help you guys as much as we can. So, not sure if that's the answer that you wanted, but that's what I got. Rick says, Muscle Man, Zach Rectum, I'm assuming he means Rector, is full of crap. The reverse carry trade did not happen by December 31st, and he is sour grapes. You disclaimed the conditions for the reverse carry trade many times, but he lost it and went rectum. We believe in you. Well, thank you for the kind words. Again, I don't feel it appropriate to talk bad about anybody else. There's going to be a lot of people that try to slander me or talk bad about me. I'm just going to continue to do what we're doing, providing products and services and creating value and helping people. And that's, part of the price. I knew that when I signed up for this. So again, I wish him the best in all of his endeavors. I'm sorry that, he feels like I wronged him in some way. Won't get into it. Legal will handle all of that. So you can see that the videos have been taken down, and there's a process in place, and we'll have more on that soon. We got Venezuela oil is extremely thick, cannot be used for gas or diesel, need an extremely costly refinery to be useful, mostly used in shipping. Hey, so there you go. Like that stuff a petroleum engineer would know that I do not, right? Like I think oil is oil, but apparently there's a difference between the oil that's there versus what we pull out of the ground through fracking or other means here. Obviously they have other natural resources. But again, that's the infrastructure that I'm talking about. They're going to have to put a bunch of resources and things in place to be able to refine that gas and pull it out of the ground and do all the things they need to refine that oil, excuse me, turn it into gas or diesel. It's not an overnight thing. And now that there's a new guard there in Venezuela, large companies can move in and build that infrastructure and feel secure doing so. So whether you like that or not, I'm not here to debate politics or if it's good or bad. I think obviously the stock market liked it there in Venezuela. It's up 17% today. We got Like a Champ, my guy. They call me the Is Man. Keep doing your thing. Japan is gonna have to make a move soon. Why do people get angry talking about XRP? I never understood it. You're wrong on X, Y, and Z. We all want to make a lot of money. Laugh out loud. God bless. I mean, if you have conviction on something, and you've done your own research and, looked through everything that's out there, it's pretty easily to, in my opinion, again, this is just my personal opinion, pretty easy to discern what's going to happen and that this asset is going to be used as a global bridge asset, likely instituted as a tier 1 asset by the BIS and given that designation. It's going to have to be a high stable value to be able to settle value globally, utilizing the XRPL and XRP for that bridge. So, there's a lot of people, there's always the new best thing, right? Like we got Canton this week. You had ZBEC not that long ago. You have, there's been lots of things that have come and gone over the years that people have made money on. There's nothing wrong with trading those things. There's nothing wrong with taking an allocation and diversifying your portfolio. That's just not my game, right? I'm always going to be real with you guys and share with what I'm doing. There's a lot of people out there that will talk their book, that will tell you to buy one thing while they're selling it. I don't do that. Now, I'll be transparent. I have had to sell off XRP at multiple times over the last 3 to 5 years to fund the business that we have. There was one point where I had sold off the majority of my position to be able to scale and meet demand and, employ all the people we needed. But that's because I want to give to the XRP family. Like this is my contribution back to the XRP family. You guys have been nothing but fantastic to me for the last 4 years. I would not know what to do without you. I feel so blessed and grateful every single day for you guys. And for me, this is how I can create value for that community and give back to y'all and make sure that it stays. Like people have been a force before price appreciation. The community and the family have stuck together. I want that to continue on the other side of price appreciation, which I don't think is that far in the future with all of these dominoes stood up and the macroeconomic events looking like they could play out in the near future. I think a lot of people want things to be separated. I don't want that. I want people to be able to stick together because that's how we're going to make it. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with a party and a team of people. You need a team. You need other good people around you. And like I've said before, it sucks getting rich alone. Like who wants to fly to their private island on their private jet alone? You need a bunch of cool people to go do that with. And so anyway, all that being said, I agree with you. I think people are tired. And there has been a lot of hype at multiple points over time. And I think that's people's frustration is they feel hoodwinked or taken. That was not my intent. I never want people to feel like, I was trying to bamboozle them or get one over. I genuinely want people to win. I genuinely want to help people. And I think if you join the mastermind, And again, that doesn't resonate with everybody. It's not for everybody. But I think if you are a good person that wants to help other people and you want to be around all like-minded people with the same objective, Mastermind is a great place to be. And all the resources and information there shared, I think, are very beneficial. All right. We've got David. He says, if it wasn't for you, very few would have been looking at the reverse carry trade or oil. Looking forward to 2026. Thank you for staying true to the cause and bringing hope. Thank you, David. Again, you guys are really kind tonight. Thank you again for the support and the kind words. Again, none of this is possible without you guys. If you guys didn't want to come on here and listen to what I had to say, or participate in the mastermind or in the products or solutions we're bringing to market, nothing I'm doing really matters. So it's y'all. So thank you. We got some bigger super chats over here that I'm gonna run through before we grab these. We've got Peter, my man. He says, Jake, I'm in Carbon 1. I don't have a question, but just want to say thank you for everything. I'm in a much better place because of you and your belief in XRP's future. We have your back as much as you have ours. Keep us focused on the real message with Max, Future, and Mike. Thank you, man. Thank you for the super chat and the kind words. Again, like it's been really a blessing to see who's on your side through all this. So thank y'all. It means the world to me and my family. And again, I think things are going to work out in our favor. We got next gen Ponzi solutions. They say, my man, Waxahachie Mastermind here. Awesome, dude. I've been to Waxahachie many times here in Texas. He says, how much longer do you think this can go on without price appreciation? Let's say even the Clarity Act gets pushed back. Can it continue on into Q2, Q3 of this year? It's predicated on the events. I mean, we do have reverse repo. So that's the other thing that was interesting the night of New Year's. We had almost $75 billion injected in reverse repo. Banks are over leveraged, they're insolvent, they're trying to scramble to get things done and make sure that they don't go under. It then got up to $100 billion, pretty close to $100 billion that the Fed is bailing out banks with each individual night. That is not sustainable. It is not okay. The price that silver continues to have and continues to grow, I don't know that silver will continue higher from here. Again, if this drags out, it absolutely could. But if we do see the reverse carry trade unwind, I think that it could hold or drop a little while gold drops substantially, and we would see a 40-to-1 or maybe a 20-to-1 on the gold to silver. If you had $100 silver and a $2,000 gold, that'd be a 20-to-1 on the gold to silver ratio. So anyway, they could absolutely kick the can. They've done it this long. I don't know what they're waiting on. Maybe they are waiting on that star to blow up, like the riddles say. I don't know. Everything's there for them to do it at any time that they want to, in my personal opinion. I'm looking at the geopolitical landscape, the macro events, the legislation that's been passed, the players that are in place. Everything looks ready to me, and has for about 20 days here. So, right about the same time that Ripple had the 5-year anniversary for, their settlement or their initial lawsuit with the SEC, everything kind of clicked into place. We're still, Ripple has their banking license. It is, pre-approved basically, but they are allowed to operate along with 4 others that were approved at the same time. Everything seems to go here for me. So again, just waiting on the catalyst to play out. But again, with the Clarity Act, they got to get that passed pretty quickly if they're going to do it. In January, we got about 10 days till that's up for vote. It'll have to go through the Senate and back to the House and have to pass, pretty quickly in both. Otherwise, they're going to run into the government funding and the budget, which is at the end of this month on the 30th. And so when Congress is back in session on the 26th, that is all that they're going to be working on. So if they don't get it done, it's not going to be good. This person says, why are you getting sued? I'm not getting sued. The lawsuit and other stuff that was presented out there in the public was from 2023 and has been settled. It was a civil case that was settled out of court. So you can go read the documents if you want to. Again, no guilt, no nothing. So, and I'll say this, if there was any fraud, I would be in jail. The FBI knows about everything that went on. I would be in jail. So if that tells you anything, again, I'm probably saying too much, but there's a legal process in place, and we'll have more information soon. John says, Mr. Shook here. Mr. Shook, how are you, sir? Carbon 3 member, my man. Been waiting on one signature for a monthly return to start. You're telling me, dude. Give me the good word, brother. Happy New Year. I look forward to coming to the event in the very near future. Beyond Broke Mastermind and is beyond amazing. Thank you. Thank you, man. I appreciate you being part of the community and all the kind words. Again, I'm with you. Just sign it. Please just sign it, and then we'll be able to move forward. Hopefully they're watching. And they'll go ahead and get it done. We got Graham. He's Mr. Green. He says, hey, Jake, thanks for all that you do. What is the minimum amount of XRP you would hold on exchange? Do you recommend, have a recommendation for a wallet to use that would be off exchange? Bless you and your family. Thank you, man. Again, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the Decent wallet is what we're an affiliate for them. We get like $5 if you buy one. I think that's my favorite. It's got, the best UI. It has a biometric. You can add a 25th seed phrase or word for more security. They do have, if you're not in the US, staking for your XRP through Doppler. And then they do have a large breadth of assets on there too. So if you're diversified and hold multiple things, Decent works great. So that's my pitch. Again, there's a lot of other good cold wallets out there too. And then back to the maximum amount of XRP that you would hold on exchange. I think that's different for everybody. So the amount that I would have on an exchange would be whatever I'm trying to sell or had a limit order placed for. If you don't plan on selling or you're waiting for a significantly higher price, it's probably best to just hold it on a cold wallet or in institutional custody at Anchorage. Right. This person says, did you pay the lost bet? Yeah, I did. I paid scams on the first, same day. Like, I'm not gonna be like, and try to skimp out or anything. I lost the bet. I paid up, no issue. So anyway, back to the deal here. It's hard to tell you what the maximum amount you'd hold on exchange is. I'll just say, like, far as practices go for clients that I've seen and how things are structured. So on average, people are holding, even like if they've got a cold wallet, maybe they have some on Caleb and Brown, maybe they have some on Uphold, maybe they have some on Coinbase. No more than, I'd really just talk to your financial advisor. If I give you any percentage, it's going to be wrong in different circumstances for different people. And I hate being like a lawyer and saying it depends. I would rather just shoot you straight, but there really are there's a lot of context there for that situation that would be better discussed for your specific situation to discern, how much was appropriate. Kevin, he says, super genius. Yes, you're still one. I am not a super genius. My IQ is about 130, 131 last time I had it tested. So I'm just smart enough. Like I said, I watch people that are a lot smarter than me that I hold in high regard, and then I work off of what they have to figure out what I think. They're the ones that come up with, like Jim Rickards, like, who comes up with the Strait of Hormuz being shut down to cause oil to spike and then the reverse carry trade to unwind? Like, that scenario in and of itself, if I hadn't had the clues to come up with all this stuff, there's no way that I would have been able to put it together. Anyway, so he says, Kevin says, still Carbon 1. Awesome, dude. let's say I have 10,000 Cheerios. I created an LLC logo. I bought a few website domains and have a pending email address for my email hosting options. Am I forever chasing the DWP minimum or wait for price appreciation? It sounds like you got everything put in place and everything's good to go. You would just need whatever the minimum is over there at Digital Wealth Partners in order to work with this. 10K Cheerios. I don't think we take Cheerios today. But as price appreciates on the other side of a $100 XRP, 10,000 Cheerios would be worth, if each Cheerio was $100, you'd have $1 million worth of Cheerios. And if you're in the mastermind, you should be good to go. And then we got the last one here before we jump into the other super chats and maybe a little bit over here on TikTok just for you guys tonight. We got Steel City. He says, God bless you and your family. Top 4% Carbon 1 member. Awesome, dude. Again, thank you guys so much for participating in the mastermind and being part of that community and adding so much value there. Like, I don't know. It's wild to be a part of. Just the culture and the vibe and how much people care about one another. Even if they have different opinions on certain things that they do argue about a little bit, it's all in good fun. And I think people really do care about one another and want to help each other. So again, thank you for cultivating that culture in the mastermind, and for everybody that's watching. If you want to participate in that, and that resonates with you, then we'd love to have you. He says, I'm going to go to the PPLI route in the future, borrow against it and get reinsurance if needed. Any other benefit you can elaborate on? Wife, 2 kids, God bless. So private placement life insurance. I don't know if you're domestic or international. Domestic, it has to be funded with cash. We did file our broker in South Dakota. So if you do need insurance, if you want life insurance, you want to look at, funding it, IULs, whole life, split dollar, premium finance, private placement life insurance. You can go to Xure Legacy, XURE legacy.com, and schedule a time with one of our advisors there. We also do annuities and other insurance products. Again, these are all tools. There's nothing that's the end all be all. What he's talking about is private placement life insurance. You need at least $5 million cash to fund that type of policy. We do want to bring an IDF to market in the near term, which is an insurance direct fund, which would bring the threshold down from PPLI to somewhere around $1 million or $2 million in cash. You do want to structure that as a 5 to 10 pay. So that means, whatever the total cash value you're going to put in has to be amortized over that many years. You can back fund, 1 year, and then 90 days later do the same year. So you can, add cash value a little bit faster. You can also max fund whole life and get the ability to borrow against it much faster than you can with PPLI. Now, when it comes to the reinsurance, so the way that works, so let's say, you put a couple $1 million in a private placement life insurance policy, we'll call it 5 million. You're able to get 1.5 million in fairly quickly. You buy XRP and some other digital assets because it has to be diversified. You can't hold more than 55% of that portfolio in a single asset. And then every other, investment that you have can't make up more than 10% of that entire portfolio. So it needs to be managed by a wealth manager. Digital Wealth Partners manage these for people. And you'd be able to borrow against the cash value of that. And you could take out another insurance policy on yourself for whatever you borrowed. So that way, God forbid something happens to you, that insurance covers the debt that you have, and the assets pass all to your loved ones or back into your trust if you structured it through the Rockefeller method. So a lot of the stuff we teach over there in the mastermind, if you're in carbon 2 or higher, a lot of the stuff that we go over is much more complex estate planning at a high level for people to be able to mitigate taxes and structure things for the most protection that they can get while legally being compliant here in the US and in other jurisdictions. If you are international, the PPLI, you can invest in kind in that PPLI. So if you're not in the US, you're not in Canada, we can structure stuff in Bermuda or offshore, and you can fund that policy in kind. So if you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 million dollars in XRP or whatever other digital asset, it will go into the policy, and you can fund it that way. It does need to be structured, and again, 5 to 10 pay, so you're doing it over a period of time. Otherwise, you won't be able to borrow against it. If you fund it, if you max fund it over, what the legal limit is, it becomes a modified endowment contract or a MEC. And then the assets still pass on, but you don't get the ability to borrow against it during your lifetime. So I want to make sure that you're, if you are going to structure private placement life insurance or really any other insurance policy, you're working with seasoned professionals that understand what's going on with all that. And they have direct partners for the lending and premium finance and all the other cool stuff that, extremely wealthy people take advantage of. And again, I don't view wealthy people as bad people. I think that they've just created a bunch of value in society through one means or another. Now, not to say there aren't bad people that get wealthy. I'm sure that there are, but it just exacerbates whatever you are. If you're already a good giving person and you are charitable and you want to make an impact and help other people, you have more means to do that. If you are a prick, you're just going to be, a bigger problem. And more people aren't going to like you if you have a bunch of money. So, that's another thing I would get right with God before price appreciation, and, make sure that, and again, not here to spout religious stuff. That's just me. I've seen probably 90% of the people that I know that are extremely wealthy are God-fearing people. And that's also the commonality that I've seen a lot across people that are holding large amounts of XRP. They have a good relationship with Jesus. So, all right, on to the other ones here before we wrap it up tonight. Dry Powder says, can an Iranian revolution destabilize the Strait of Hormuz and subsequently affect Japan? It absolutely could. I don't know what the means are going to be for them to shut down that strait. Again, that didn't come from me. It came from Jim Rickards. So, but I do think that that ends up being the case. And again, that makes the most sense with Japan getting the majority of their oil and energy from that jurisdiction. If there's something that impacts that, it is absolutely going to cause significant inflation in their economy. Anthony says, what is the worst case time frame for $100? Again, my legal counsel has told me to stay away from time frames and focus on macro events. So that's what I have to do. And I promised them I would do it at least for 6 months. So I cannot give you a time frame for $100. All I can tell you is on the other side of oil spiking and the Bitcoin ETF, that should be not a problem. Southern Rock says, Jake, my lady is mad at me. XRP is not $100. I got her under control. I bought the LLC and the trust, DWP. What is my next move? Happy New Year to you and your family. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Happy New Year to you. And I understand the wife. My wife is also still not happy that we haven't seen price appreciation. She started to ask me, on a more frequent basis what it's doing. And also she's got, she answers a lot of the comments for you guys. So she knows what the sentiment is out there most of the time. So next would be, like this other gentleman, he said that he has, a wife and 2 children. If you have dependents, and I don't mean to beat the insurance horse here, but that's probably what I would look at. You want to, if you're younger and you have good health, it would be really good to underwrite a convertible term policy now versus later. And it's not super expensive either. Like, it doesn't have to be a huge policy. You'd probably want it to be, 3 to 5 million. That way, when you convert it later, it's pretty easy to fund it with large amounts of money and be able to use the infinite banking and all the stuff we talk about. But that's something I've recently done, is I set up a convertible policy that's a term policy for the next 10 years because my health is good. And who knows what tomorrow is going to bring. I could come down with an illness, I could have stroke, whatever could happen. And then if I go to set up the insurance policy after that, it's going to be much more expensive, and some insurers aren't even going to touch me, right? So if you can lock in your health rating now and you are healthy when you're younger, and you can get a convertible term policy, you're going to be in a really good spot to be able to capitalize on the other side of price appreciation. So if you already have the living trust, if you already have the LLC, if you already have your assets at Digital Wealth Partners, that would probably be the next conversation I would have if you're looking to be proactive and get things in place, would be on the insurance front. Kryptonium9 says, Jake, I try to keep an eye on oil to yen, but haven't found a good site for accuracy, real-time price reporting. What site do you use? When I look at WTI crude and yen, this one is exchangeраtes.org.uk/live-oil-prices/capital oil JPY.html. And it shows live crude price in yen at $9,059. Been holding pretty steady here around that point. If we look back over the 10-year, the highest we were was around, really globally, in mid-2022, crude was priced at almost 15,000 yen per barrel. And today we're back down to not quite half of that, but around 9,000. We've dropped as low as 8,300 based on this chart. So, we have pulled back. Again, I'm not a technical guy. I don't claim to be, but other people that have charted stuff, when they show a, descending triangle like that with the RSI, like opposite, it's moving in opposition to the trend on the chart. There's normally a strong reversal there. And based on where the chart is, it does look like there could be pretty substantial reversal and spike in price. And again, like some people will tell you, show me the charts, I'll tell you the news. I'm more of like an events-driven person. The market is, forward pricing about 6 months. It prices in what people think is going to happen. And that's, why black swans and other things that happen out of the blue cause problems for people, because it's not priced in. So I don't know if you've got that website or not, but you can listen back to this and probably put it in and figure it out. We've got Rods and Nails says, does it trickle up to 100 or does it leap in a big swing? Big swing. Time frame on how long it takes to get from 10 to 100 when it starts moving for real. I'll say it this way. If the catalysts play out the way that I believe they're going to, so again, this is my bias. Take it with a grain of salt. I'm just some dude on the internet. When the supply shock occurs and the demand happens on XRP that makes it move exponentially to 10, 20, 50, $100, I think you could see $50 in a 24-hour period. I think you could see 100 very shortly after that. And then, I think there will be a big move to the 4-digit price, where maybe it's just repriced by the BIS. I don't know. There's going to be a supply and demand dynamic that pushes it to where it needs to be. My hesitation to say that they could just reprice it is because if XRP is fixed, it's not dynamic or flexible. And as you see, the fluctuations in markets and more value move on chain, you would need XRP to be able to rise to be able to meet that demand, unless they were going to be able to control the price by using the escrow to be able to release enough XRP to meet whatever demand was on the market to hold price stable, which I do believe is the whole point of the escrow anyway, is to be able to release XRP to be able to maintain price stability over the long term. So again, I don't know if that specifically answers your question or not. I think it's going to be one big leap or a big swing, like you said. I don't think it's going to be a trickle. I think it's going to be trickle, flood when it happens. We got, this person says, what is the point of TA when the market and everything else is manipulated by the wealthy? Until utility takes over, it's all speculation. I completely agree with you. There's a lot of people out there that have done well with TA. That's not my game. Like I've stated before, Blockchain Backer is the main person that I watch for that. And again, the other thing I like about Blockchain Backer is he's not watching other people's content. He's not making content about other people. He is focused on his stuff, and he tells you what he's doing and what he thinks. I really appreciate that. So anyway, but I'm with you. I think the whole market is speculative until we see price appreciation. And utility, to your point. We got Lord and family. They say, what is your take on Canton Network partnering with the DTCC and NASDAQ? Do you have a price prediction for it? I probably should. So when I did, this is probably what had to been 6-8 months ago. I did a video where I looked at the total addressable market across multiple verticals or financial verticals. And Canton did not come up for the tokenization of anything at the time. I could look back at the chart that I created for all of that and figure out what the total addressable market was for the stock market. Now, the token itself, there's a difference between something that settles value on a network and a governance token. So let's take a look here at Canton Network token. I'm going to give it to you guys real time. Let me see if it is a governance token. It says the Canton Network governance isn't solely via governance token, but through the Canton Foundation. The native token, CC, is used to pay for services on the network, like using, okay, so it's like Quant. So there will be demand for it because people will want to use the network to tokenize things. And they will lock up the token or have to hold the token in order to participate on the network and pay the fees for participating on the network. But it's not for actual settlement of value between counterparties. It says all circulating tokens are earned by providing network utility, unlike tokens with pre-sales or allocations. All circulating Canton coins are earned by providing network utility. Interesting. So, I mean, they want to incentivize people participating on the network. More token gets locked up, the more people, utilizing it, paying fees on the network, the more demand there is. If it's a fixed supply, then you should see price increase. But it's difficult to figure out what the total addressable market is for that because they're not actually settling value for financial products. It's just to be able to pay fees to use the infrastructure, similar to Quant. I know a lot of people think Quant is just going to go to $1 million or something crazy. I do think that Overledger is absolutely important. The token itself seems very similar to CC token here. I don't see it going to crazy numbers. I'd have to go look at what it is today, and then I could, over time, I could probably give you a better educated guess. But just viscerally, looking at it, it doesn't seem like it would be used in an application to drive the price to significant values. And again, like the previous gentleman pointed out, a lot of everything here is just complete speculation until we really do have utility and start to see demand for, what it's going to be used for at scale, and how much, is going to be locked up. DFW Mike, my man, good to see you. He says, evening legend. Do you and the tea lady like Korean barbecue? We like barbecue. We're from Texas. I need to go to Kansas City. Everybody's telling me the barbecue in Kansas City is awesome. We also, fun fact, DFW Mike, there is a gentleman in the Mastermind that won the world barbecue championships just a few years ago. So if you want some good barbecue, There's somebody in the mastermind to give you good barbecue. My wife says, "What's Korean barbecue? Is it like hibachi?" If it is hibachi, we do like hibachi. I'm too southern and too redneck, I guess, to know what Korean barbecue is. I'll grab a couple more here before we wrap it up tonight. We got James. He says, "Jake, hold the line. Never surrender. The matrix is collapsing. New system coming. God bless you and your family. XRP Army rise." Shout out. Thank you so much, James. I appreciate you and your family. Happy New Year. Thank you for the support. And then second to that, I want to give a shout out to Johnny Crypto and Abs. They called me out, which I appreciate. That's fine. I'm fine to be held accountable on stuff. But they also held me accountable to the things that I've been right about, which a lot of people just kind of swept under the rug. I've been pretty spot on with everything else. And I think I'm going to continue to be spot on with the rest of this thesis as it plays out here in 2026. So, head on a swivel, keep watching. And again, to your point, I do think we're right in the middle. What a time to be alive. You are in the middle of a transition for financial systems that's never going to happen again. And the opportunity you're at the forefront of won't happen again for multiple generations. And for you to be here and take advantage of it, God bless you. We got these sleep no more. They say, if the reverse carry trade does not happen, what will it take to get to 3 to 4 digits and how long? It's not like and this is the whole point with this. The perfect storm has to play out to push XRP to those prices. And that's why so many people out there just don't get it. They're like, that's never going to happen. You're crazy. That seems silly. It is a perfect storm scenario that I'm talking about. But, it's looking more and more likely all the time that all of this is going to play out exactly like I've laid out here. So it has to be that scenario. There is not another scenario outside of the BIS just repricing it that it's going to be able to get to those numbers. And they need it to happen through this means in order for it to maintain its flexibility and be dynamic to be able to continue to increase and grow with the adoption of blockchain and distributed ledger technology as things are tokenized for the settlement of value on the back end of markets and globally. So with all that being said, I really don't see another scenario for it to get to those numbers. Let's see here. We've got, aren't we there? Are we there yet? It's a good name. If I have started my LLC 2 weeks ago, what should I be expecting to see as far as taxes go? LLC was funded today. I was away for the holidays. If it wasn't funded until today, it really wasn't established until today. So this is your first tax year. If you filed it 2 weeks ago, it would have been a disregarded entity. And if you tell your CPA that it's just a disregarded entity, it didn't have any business transactions or income, then they will file it that way. But you really don't have to do anything. I think I have made it through the majority of the super chats here. We got a couple more. Chomp Master, he says, Jake the Snake, lots of stronghold chatter lately. Curious your take. Respect the grounded knowledge you bring. You show up for your family and for us while seeing people clip you, yet still doubt you. I don't know, man. That's the interest. Again, I just stay in my lane. I'm not here to talk about anybody else. It's funny to see everybody talk about me, though. Anyway, so back to the stronghold conversation. I haven't been paying a whole lot of attention to that. Again, until we diversify into other assets, the majority of the focus is building financial products explicitly for XRP in the short term. We will have a Bitcoin product that we bring to market we do have some larger whales that are holding significant amounts of Bitcoin that want to generate returns on that as well. But outside of that, you know, I like Stronghold. I like Velo. I like Zbeck. Like there's a lot of things on Hyperledger that I do think are going to be used in specific applications and probably see some traction. Is it the end all be all, like going to do way better than anything else? I don't think so. Again, I would love to be wrong on that though. I want people to make a bunch of money. There's been lots of things that I've missed. I didn't get in Doge, thought that was silly. Other people made a bunch of money on Doge. I didn't get in Solana, thought that was silly. Other people made a bunch of money on Solana. Stronghold may be another one of those that I think, you know, is probably a future type thing, and it goes to the moon in the short term. I don't control that. The only thing I can control is where I put my money, and I can't even control what XRP does. It's not like some people will tell you, oh, you hype XRP and you try to pump it and blah, blah, blah. Like, look, I love you guys, but we're not moving the price of XRP. Okay, it's institutions at this point, and it will continue to be institutions. So anyway, all that being said, best of luck to people out there that hold significant amounts of Stronghold. I hope y'all make a lot of money, and I miss out on it. 85 million says, I have XRP on Uphold, but they permanently disabled withdrawals after I reported a scam. I wanted to move it to Tangem, but this forces me to hold/liquidate only on their platform. What recourse do you have? I can make an introduction for you to our rep over there, and they can try to help you out. Austin does a really good job. He's on the institutional side, and he can probably pass you to the right team to be able to have a conversation. So if you want to email us at info@digitalfamilyoffice.io, you know, we'd love to work with you and help you out and get you his information. One of the things that we didn't talk about at Digital Family Office is the LLC. We've had a couple people mention that tonight. We did increase the price on the renewals. Anybody that signed up last year is going to maintain the previous price on the renewal cost of $1,000. People that sign up this year will be a little bit higher, but there might be a discount code that we can help people out with if you're in the mastermind. So all that being said, we would love to work with you to structure a company in Wyoming to be able to manage your digital assets. If you have more than $50,000 to $80,000 in your total portfolio value, and the majority of that is XRP, I think it would behoove you to start looking at that option. Again, you do not have to work with us. There are other people out there that do it. We have the most experience and have done the most of them. We've done 8,000 LLCs over the past 3 years, working with people to make sure it's done correctly, to mitigate taxes, you know, have creditor protection, provide them anonymity to transact with their digital assets. So if that sounds cool to you, you're in that range and you want to learn more, you just go to digitalfamilyoffice.io. There's a services page. You go to the LLC page. There's a full video on everything that you get: EIN, articles of organization, certificate of good standing, registered agent, banking memorandum, corporate veil service, template for the operating agreement, which normally costs you somewhere between $1,500 and $2,000, depending on which attorney you use. They're in Wyoming. And we do all of that end to end for $2,000 if you use the code 50OFF, 50OFF LLC. That's 50OFF LLC. And if you want to tack on a living trust, it's only $500 more, which is the cheapest I have ever found for a living trust. We are likely going to raise the price here in the near future on that. You know, I told you guys at the beginning of the year, luckily for you, our partner can't do that right now. So it is still $500 for the living trust alongside the LLC. So it ends up being $2,500 total for the living trust and the LLC digital asset for your digital assets there in Wyoming. If you use the code 50OFF, 50OFF LLC, that's 50OFF like off, DAG like Digital Ascension Group, LLC like Limited Liability Company. All right. We got Teddy. He says, Mr. Claver, Happy New Year. Without pinning you to any dates, please help describe the types of institutions we can expect to initially see adopt XRP, and an estimate of the adoption rate over the coming year. That's fair. I appreciate this. This is a good question, and it's written well. So the types of institutions I think that we're going to see the adoption for on XRP. I do believe that we're going to see it settling the back end of the stock market, but that is going to require the price appreciation that many of us have wanted. And that is going to come through the supply shock and the geopolitical events that we've talked about. So let's say that does happen this year, which again, I feel like everything's there for that to work. I did last year, and that's why I was as confident as I was. And again, some other things, but again, short term inside this year, I do think that it's highly, highly, highly likely. I don't want to use any numbers like 99.99 because people get mad about that. Highly, highly likely that we see that type of price appreciation. And when that takes place, you'll see banks and institutions start to settle it when they issue stable coins. So, ROUSD being issued on the XRPL or on the EVM sidechain. You got JP Morgan now using G Treasury. You've got a lot of Ripple services and their partners utilizing their stablecoin and XRP in their infrastructure. So anybody that's associated with Ripple Prime, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Goldman, Citi, I think all of these parties, once XRP is to the price that's required, will all be using it to settle between each other, alongside, other financial products that they'll probably be participating in. So, and then we'll also see like Evernorth, we're going to see treasury companies, we're going to see companies hold XRP on their balance sheet in significant amounts in order to pay fees to settle on the network, and also, as an asset to be able to offset their liabilities. And yeah, I think all of that could very well likely happen here in 2026. Obviously, we're 5 days in. I've seen lots of people out there giving their, year-long predictions today. Again, I've been told that I need to stay away from that. So for at least 6 months, I'm going to try to stick to the events that need to take place, because those are the things that are going to drive it to the price it needs to be. So again, not sure if that gave you everything that you wanted there, Teddy, but I thank you for the super chat and appreciate your support and coming to hang out with me on a Monday night. Honest Aim, this is a good one to end on. He says, Mr. Legacy, hi to the tea lady. Thanks for all that you do in the Beyond Broke Mastermind. Just wanted to say, we knew you were right. We knew you were early. Blessings to all you and your team. Thank you for the kind words, man. And I do think I will be vindicated. Feel pretty confident in that. We'll have to see how things play out here through the rest of the year. I do think it's going to be a lot of fun. Again, just many things point to being very close to the time. So again, with that, I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your evening to come hang out with me. If you do want to participate in the mastermind, we would love to have you. We are going to lock it down after this month. I'm just going to go ahead and call it. So if you do want to participate, again, you can use the code Beyond Broke, all capitalized, the number 1, and then MO like Mary Oscar, get you, the month here for a small discount. And then you will be in. And again, on the other side of this month, we will be invite only at a much higher price for people to participate there in the mastermind. Separate to that, again, if you need the LLC and you want to work with us over there, you can go to digitalfamilyoffice.io and use the code 50OFF50 OFFDAG LLC. That's 50 OFFDAG LLC. Get you everything end to end that you need for your holding company to manage your digital assets if you have more than $50,000 to $80,000 invested in your portfolio. And then last but not least, if you do want to work with Digital Wealth Partners, get access to institutional custody there at Anchorage, the same custody that BlackRock has for your family and the protection in your loved ones. All you got to do is go to digitalwealthpartners.net. Make sure you go to .net and use the contact us form and reach out to our team. So love you guys. Thank you again for taking time out of your evening. Come hang out with me on a Monday. We will be back Wednesday night. And until then, we'll see you on the next one. God bless.